Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and my guests today are Bill Kuwik, who is a massage therapist, and a friend of his named Jim Enser, who is going to get a massage today. Bill, some of you may remember that Bill gave somebody else a massage on Fresh Perspectives one time. And now another person gets a massage, and his name is Jim Enser. Enser, oh right, Enser.
But yeah, well, and I just thought, to start with, I usually like to talk a little bit about the brief history of massage. And we know now that almost every culture, every society in the world has had some form of massage, some sort of touch therapy. I know it goes back to the ancient Persians, ancient Chinese had writings about massage therapy. And they say it's the most intuitive, the most natural form of healing that there is. And you might question that, but I often say, it's like, well, if you bumped your elbow, your hand immediately goes to rub your elbow. Or if you have a headache, your hand goes to your head. So in that way it is. And I also like to just say just briefly, like the biological reasons, how massage helps. And I usually think of like tissue as ischemic tissue. So anything that's tight is ischemic. It's holding tension, and it could be from, maybe you were in a car accident and you had whiplash, maybe a sports injury, maybe it's from overuse because you're using your computer mouse so much, or it could be just postural, just the way people hold their postures and don't use those muscles. But so for whatever reason, when the muscle tightens up, it actually will compress. If you think of the muscle as being like a sponge, the muscle being tight will actually compress the blood vessels, the capillaries. It'll compress the nerve tissue that's in there. And often when we feel pain, it's because something has been so tight for so long that it's not allowing the circulation to go through that area, and thus keeping it tight, whether, like you said, no matter what the reason, whether it was from an injury or overuse. But what massage does, and when that does clamp down like that, when it's tight, it actually will make the muscle hold on to metabolic waste products like lactic acid, uric acid, hyaluronic acid will be stored in that muscle because it's not getting the circulation. So what massage does is it goes in there and manually loosens it up, increases the circulation, and then hopefully with proper use and time and stretching, the muscle will recover, and you don't have those kinds of issues. And I mean, I've seen, for myself, even near miraculous results sometimes. I mean, there's been people that, I had a woman that was told by her several surgeons that she absolutely was going to have a third neck surgery because her second one, where they used cadaver bones, didn't take. And her husband came in one time. He said, well, we definitely have medical biological proof that your treatments are helping her. And I was like, how's that? And he said, well, the doctor said that after 1 year, the bone will not grow, and it had been almost 2 years, and they just x-rayed her since she's been coming here, and the bone regrew. So even something like that, it can actually, and the doctors, they said that they felt that because I was putting pressure against the bone, it stimulated the bone growth. And I hate to say they were wrong, but I personally feel that her neck was so tight that the circulation wasn't getting, and there's no circulation. How's the bone going to grow?
Yeah, well, were you actually pressing against the bone? You usually only press against muscle when you do a massage.
The muscle is right over the bone, but I wasn't specifically thinking, I need to get to her, C3 intervertebral foramina so I can make that grow. I mean, I was just kind of pushing on the muscles. But I mean, if the bone is underneath the muscle, you're pushing on it. I guess you are pushing against the bone. But I really, she came to me because she had severe headache problems, and we were working on her neck because of the headaches. I wasn't thinking like, I'm going to work on this so it's going to make the bone grow. I'm just trying to loosen up her muscles so she gets relief from the headaches primarily. But like I said, I wasn't specifically looking towards fusing her bones back together. Plus, I mean, I'm not like looking at an X-ray thinking like, okay, how do I get in there to make sure that I can make that bone fuse? But it just happened, that way. But I mean, I had a woman one time came to me for a knee chondromalacia patella, where your outer thigh muscles become stronger than the inner thigh, and it makes your kneecaps track off center. And underneath your kneecap, on the bottom of the kneecap, there's 2 grooves that sit on 2 little knobs of the, I want to say it's the tibia, but they roll back and forth on that. Well, if they're pulled off to the side, there's like a binding underneath there, and it causes a lot of pain. Well, unbeknownst to me, this woman had ovarian cysts for like 20 years or something like that, and coming for a half-hour massage 3 times a week for 2 weeks, 2 times a week for 2 weeks, once a week for 2 weeks, and then we started skipping a week. She told me that she was, I've been going to the gynecologist like every 2 or 3 months ever since I was like a teenager, and she said, after getting all these massages, he said, well, I guess we'll just see you next year. And she's like, next year? She goes, I'm usually here every 2 or 3 months. He's like, oh yeah, those are gone. She's like, they're gone?
Oh, they were gone.
She's
oh,
like, what
yeah,
happened?
Yeah.
How could that be? And he says, well, sometimes changes in nutrition, changes in circulation. And she said, well, the only thing that I've been doing differently in these last few months is getting the massages. So, you think about it though. I mean, I was working on everything from her hips to her toes, and a lot of times women hold a lot of tension
in
their pelvis in general. So, maybe it was just loosening up those muscles around the hip joints and loosening up things around her pelvis that increased the circulation, and the cysts went away. So, there could be a lot of side benefits, but. Well, I thought I would just start by doing some work on Jim, and I can talk a little bit through it. But
Jim Enser, who is the model for today, who's going to be the lucky person that gets a massage, he is a retired man retired from working at the Department of Health.
Okay.
And I guess he highly recommends massage. He gets them fairly regularly.
Well, what I usually start with is I just kind of make contact, and I do this myofascial kind of a stretch or glide. And I know that Ida Rolf, who was she's the woman who developed the system of massage called Rolfing. It's super, super deep tissue. But she always said when you do this, you should push down the person's back. So we're kind of stretching the tissue from the neck, shoulders down. So what you're doing, and this will potentially help to correct any kind of postural distortion. So if we're pushing here, we're stretching this, so you're actually thinking you're going to actually bring the shoulders back. But she also said if you're going to do this on the front, you come up the front, so it will actually help you against gravity that way.
Oh, if you come up the front of the
body,
body,
we're getting a little bit of
on the front of the body. You come up and
you come up on the front. Yeah, she always said up the front and down
the back. Okay.
Yep. You can see we're getting a little bit of color here, a little bit of hyperemia. So there's some circulation increase already there.
It's funny if you do Tai Chi and Qigong, and I've even noticed it when I do yoga exercises too.
Right.
If when you're getting finished doing those particular exercises, you want to look at the palms of your hands, because the palms of your hands will look all red and mottled because you've gotten the chi energy flowing.
When I've done martial arts like all my life, and first Tai Chi class I went to, we did a very, very simple. It's called Carry the Moon, the Bung Air, and I was like, well, I mean, I heard with Tai Chi it takes years before you start to feel anything, and it was the first exercise we did. We just breathed in, brought our hands up, and breathed down, brought our hands down, and I'm like, my hands were like on fire, my arms were on fire, my whole body heated up like that. But it doesn't take much for me to feel that pulsing energy in the.
I always, when I do those particular kinds of exercises, get that redness going in the palms of my hands.
So here I try to this is osseous integration, but I try to grab onto the top of the hip here before I sink in, and then I do the glide upward from here, but I'm not going all the way up, so it's more just for
And you
stretch
do
the
that
lower.
along the side of the spine?
Yeah, the spine is like right here in the middle, so
Yeah,
I'm kind of
and
on
then
these erector muscles on the side.
Uh-huh.
So typically I do this, it's called strumming. Some people call this the bear claw, but you go this is the spine, I'm just off of the spine and I'm just trying to pull across the muscle. So it's sort of a cross fiber friction type of a move. And then I kind of go to the outside of that. So here is the outside of his spinous process here. So I'm just on top in front of that. And then I'm trying to push that same muscle into or muscle groups, really. It's a whole bunch of different, there's different things. There's, spinal erectors, essentially, front to back there. But, I mean, side to side. A little more aware of that this time. And just trying to get more circulation into these muscles along the spine. Jim did have, was it a car accident? You had a neck injury?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Whiplash.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Well, it was several years ago.
Yes, a few years.
And that was when you start going to Bill?
Not long after that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim's son is a physical therapist, right?
Oh.
Australia?
Oh, nice. Australia. Wow.
So I always like to work on the hips a lot too. I often think a lot of low back tension comes from tight hip muscles. Often the piriformis is one that will tighten up and cause people to have sciatic problems. But a lot of in fact, these muscles, we're going to do that. I'll have him side lying at some point, but we'll work on these muscles. The muscles on the side of the hip here are considered pelvic stabilizers, and Paul St. John's, who I studied neuromuscular therapy with, says that this area right here, tightest muscles in the body and the thickest connective tissue in the body. And he does a lot of cadaver work where he
does he?
dissects, human cadavers a lot. But he said, a lot of people say, so it's like a shock absorber, but it's not really a shock absorber. But if you can imagine, every time that you strike your heel on the floor, so if you're standing on one leg, walking, running, dancing, jumping, yoga, you have to tighten up here to keep your pelvis level. And you've probably seen some people when they walk, their hips go back and forth like that.
Yeah.
They aren't activating those muscles quite as much. So right here is really technically the thickest connective tissue and the tightest muscles
so
in the body.
that means there's something that needs to be done if somebody's hips do that.
Well, no, when you don't do that, you're always using that. So it's always going to be tight. Paul St. John says, he says, I don't care who you are, what you did for a living. He said, that's always tight in there. If you're not activating those muscles, then you're probably not as tight in there, but you're still having to use them because you're, even though your butt's kind of wagging back and forth in the air.
Okay. So you're supposed to keep.
You're supposed to keep level. Your hips should stay level as your legs move and articulate.
Okay.
But yeah. But he actually said, he says, I wasn't expecting to break scalpels, but he said one time working on one particular cadaver, he said I lost track, he said, but I probably broke between 7 and 9 scalpels just trying to cut through that tissue on somebody because it's just so thick and so hard.
Is this something that this person does while they're training other people, or?
Well, Paul St. John's does have the he actually sold that training business, but he started. The thing with him was he actually was a Green Beret medic in Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
And told us some interesting things. He said when you're flying up in a helicopter, he says you don't wear your Army helmet. He said because the Viet Cong are shooting at you from down below. So he said you sit on the helmet. You put the helmet on the floor of the helicopter. You sit on it. Well, his helicopter got shot down from about 200 feet up,
Oh,
and he said he had this compression injury of his neck. And so I'm just doing these deep kind of, this is a neuromuscular technique where you just do these deep glides along those spinal erectors. But, and if I hit anything that seems like, it's tense or thicker than anything else, I might just hold on that point for maybe 10 seconds, like we're getting up into here. But, so he had a pretty bad neck injury from that war injury. And he said, I tried traditional massage, chiropractic, physical therapy, different kinds of, injections and stuff like that. He said, but he wasn't getting any better, but he had some medical background training, so he just started to do all this research. Well, eventually he kind of figured, but I think these techniques would help me, but I can't do them to myself. So he started training other people to do these techniques,
So that
and it did
have
help
somebody
him.
who could massage
Right,
him.
but it did help him, and then he was like, well, wait, if I can train people to do this, why don't I make this my business? So he did that for many years. He had the Paul St. John's School of Neuromuscular Massage Therapy, but he sold that business a few years ago. I mean, he's got to be in his mid-70s right now. I'm not even sure if he's still working, but he sold the neuromuscular school to some investors, and then I think he started calling what he did neurosomatic therapies, but I think, again, a slightly different approach than what he did with the neuromuscular school. But yeah, he said that, before he even got any better or much better from the getting shot down in a helicopter, he said he was, better, but really still having whiplash symptoms. Got T-boned by a drunk driver in Florida,
Yeah.
which was not good for his neck either. But yeah, he figured out what would work and what would fix him, and then started this whole system of training people with that. So I always like to use a little bit of deeper, go in with the elbow a little bit here along the spine.
Now, do massage therapists get benefits from doing this? Because, I mean, it looks like what you're doing could be a strengthening exercise for your arms.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely is a physical thing, but honestly, oftentimes you hear of massage therapists injuring themselves because they overdo or they just do too many treatments. But yeah, I mean, it can be, and I don't know if maybe you can't notice exactly, but I'm trying to keep my posture up, like someone else might be like this doing this move, or they're completely bent over. But if you you try to watch, I'm trying to keep my hips underneath me. I've got my body weight here. I'm not here. I'm trying to keep my back up. I'm trying to push. I'm pushing with my legs here.
Okay, so that's part of what you get trained to do when you're being trained to be a massage therapist,
Well,
is how to
mean,
do it without hurting yourself.
You should be, but like I've said, I've been at St. John's neuromuscular classes, and these people are just out of school, and they're like doing something like this. It's like, can you imagine what that's going to do to your back and neck if you're bent over like this for hours every day? So I think for me, having taken years of yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong and martial arts kind of helps me to generate more power into what I do, but also because of keeping my posture right. There's a lot of people that don't make it as massage therapists for more than 2 or 3 or 4 years, and I'm in my 28th year right now. I started in May of '95. So
Yeah,
next May will be
that's
28.
been quite a long time.
I was thinking,
There is somebody that I know who had become a massage therapist, and wound up giving it up. It almost seems like she was sort of having some carpal tunnel syndrome
that's common.
symptoms or something like that.
And more with women, I think, too, though. But yeah, it's fairly common. Back problems, neck problems, shoulder problems.
You have to keep changing sides, don't you, there?
Just gonna do some of these deep, like knuckle glides across the top of those traps.
Yeah, getting aches and pains quite often can be brought on with foods that are inflammatory.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just talking about it this morning about diet soda, and I know we've talked
Oh
about
my
it before,
gosh.
but
Yeah.
you can actually get, my one friend, I've never read this anyplace, but he's very bright. He's a PhD in genetic engineering, and he told me that aspartame, which is what's in diet beverages of all kinds, he said that at body temperature, it turns into formaldehyde. So, you're basically dumping formaldehyde into your body as you're drinking that, I guess. But I had a woman, and I have read in many cases where you can actually get false MS symptoms from.
Yes, I've heard that quite a few years ago. It was when I first started attending the Chautauqua County Vegetarian Society dinners. There was a speaker that they had, an herbalist, that said that that a large percentage of people who think they have MS actually have a toxic condition caused by the artificial sweeteners.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I had a client. It was funny because at one point, her daughter said that, my mom's going to physical therapy for like 18 months now, and she goes, they claim she's got frozen shoulder, but she's not really getting any better. And she goes, I really don't want her to have surgery. She says, but I want her to come and see you. Well, eventually the physical therapist, after 18 months of treating her, said, yeah, we're not going to be able to help you. This isn't getting any better. You're going to have surgery now.
They did it for a whole 18 months
Yeah,
first.
year and a half before they told her that they couldn't help her. So the daughter's like, I want her to come to you. So the daughter bought her a gift certificate, and she came in. Well, I hate to say that the doctors and the physical therapists were wrong, but when I assessed her, I'm like, it's not frozen shoulder. It was her bicep tendon, which has a lot of the same symptoms. Like, it's hard to lift your arm to the side or lift your arm to the front. And frozen shoulder, it's to the side. Like, in frozen shoulder, you should be able to get 30 degrees of rotation without the shoulder blade moving, like in the socket. But if you need to bring your arm straight up over your head, your whole shoulder blade needs to rotate up. But that wasn't what was going on with her. It was her bicep tendon. So I was like, well, it's not even frozen shoulder, it's your bicep tendon. So I put an ice pack under her shoulder, worked all around the back of the shoulder. After 15 minutes, had her turn face up, worked on the bicep attachments. And when she was ready to leave, she put her jacket on. She says, oh my God, she goes, this is like 75 to 80% better. Which I said, well, if you came in like one or two more times, I said, I'm guaranteeing I could have you at 95 to 100% better. But she wouldn't come because I didn't take her insurance. It's like you just spent like almost $4,000 at physical therapy over the course of 9 or 18 months.
That was in co-pays?
Yeah, because it was $20 each time, and she was going 2 and 3 times a week. So it was $40 to $60 a week. So if you figure an average of $50 a week, in a year, that's $2,500. Another half a year, that's $3,700.
Wow.
But her mom made her an appointment and bought her a gift certificate. A few years later, she said, well, I don't know if she'll tell you, but she's had MS symptoms, and she was in her mid-50s. It's like, people don't usually get MS that late in life. And as we were talking, she said that it's this hamstring usually, though, right? She said she started talking about a friend of hers that drinks like 2 liters of diet soda every day. And so we got to talking about diet soda. And she said, well, I'm not saying I don't do it. She goes, but I don't drink 2 liters a day. She goes, I've just drunk 1 can a day for many years. I'm like, wait a minute. Is it you drink a can of diet soda every day for years? She goes, yeah. I'm like, well, I said, do you realize that you can get false MS symptoms from Oh, well, she goes, I've been tested. She goes, I have MS. I'm like, right, but those symptoms can be because of the drink.
Yeah,
But,
I know. You know, it's like it's a really high percentage of people that are diagnosed with MS
Well, you know, I have this neurological...
that actually have it's actually a toxic condition with a artificial sweetener. So,
Well,
people shouldn't be drinking soda anyways.
well, yeah.
You
But I
know.
mean, honestly, the sugar would probably be far less damaging to you than the artificial sweeteners.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she was kind of in denial. She's like, well, I can't believe that drinking 1 can a day would make that much difference. It's like, well, I said, you know, it's accumulative though. It probably adds up. You know,
Oh, it does. I'm sure it
stores
does,
in your
yeah.
body, in your system. So then over time, you know, it builds up. But I said, you know, maybe for some people it is like 1 can per day that is the threshold. But she said that she would quit for me. And I'm like, it's not going to matter to me either way whether you quit or not. But the funny thing is you know, how people will look for any kind of an answer. Her daughter came in for a massage, I don't know, a month or so later. She said, well, she goes, they found out what was wrong with my mom. I'm like, what do you mean? I thought it was MS. No, it's carpal tunnel. I'm like, the whole left side of her body was numb from her toes to her head, but they said it was carpal tunnel, and she was okay with that and kept drinking her diet soda. So
Oh my
after
gosh,
I work
yeah.
on this leg, I'm gonna I'll do that sideline thing where I work on that.
Okay.
I mean, you can push in here from the side or use your forearm, your elbow, but when you can go straight down, straight in, it's you can get a lot more. Those muscles are fairly thick in there too. So you know, obviously, like I said, he said they're the thickest connective tissue, the tightest tightest muscle in the body because. Like I said, like since you could walk, every time you step, you're tightening those. And it's I mean, everybody thinks it's the glute muscle. They always say glute. Well, the gluteus maximus is here, but this is gluteus medius and gluteus minimus are in here. So there's actually 3 glute muscles. And a lot of times when I'm going in there deep, too, you know, a lot of people that even some of my clients were like, "Oh, you're going to work on the glutes." It's like, well, I'm not really working on the glute muscle itself. There are deep external lateral rotators of the hip. So when like this is the greater trochanter, the femur here. Number 1, piriformis goes over to the sacrum here. So when that shortens in there, it actually rolls. It turns the whole femur out to the side.
Oh.
So I'm trying to work on those because a lot of times, like when like you look at him, the way he's sitting, see how his toes are out? He's shortening his piriformis. We all do that. So
Oh, you know,
you're doing the same thing too.
You know, that's the thing that I remember learning in yoga, you know, like when you do certain yoga exercises where your legs are you're standing up and your legs are far apart.
Right.
You're supposed to have those toes
in.
facing forward, not out to the sides.
Right. And you know what combats that too? I mean, the half pigeon pose is you're hyper internally rotating the thigh and then laying over it. So that stretches the piriformis and those external rotations. Because there's piriformis and then there's gemellus superior, gemellus inferior. And then actually below that, it's not even a muscle, it's a piece of connective tissue. But you know, in yoga, we always talked about the ischial tuberosity, the sit bone. That's like right there. That's where your hamstring's attached to it. It's right there. But there's a sacrotuberous ligament that goes from that ischial tuberosity over to the sacrum, and that's one of the connective tissue pieces that goes. It actually you're connected from the ball of your foot, over your heel, up your calf, up your hamstring. It jumps over that sacrotuberous ligament, connects to all the muscles of the rectors of the spine, actually ends at your eyebrow. So that's all one continuous piece of connective tissue. It's called the superficial back line, and I know. Tom Myers, when I took a workshop with him, he told us, and we had sat in the car for hours getting there and then sat in at the class for hours, but he said, I want you to just stand up, take your shoes off, stand up and bend forward, and he said, I want you to see how close you can come to putting your palms directly on the floor. And he says, I don't want you to warm up, I don't want you to stretch. He said, I just want you to try it and see where you're at. So I could barely touch my fingertips.
Yeah.
So he said,
yeah.
now, he said, I want you to take your knuckle or your thumb and work really deeply into the bottoms of your feet for like 10 or 15 minutes. So we did that, sat in our chairs. He says, now, he says, again, we didn't stretch, we didn't warm up. He said, now see how close you can get your palms to the floor. Now, after doing that, my palms hit the floor. So I gained, 5, 6 inches of stretch. He said, now that, he said, supports my theory that, we loosened up. We didn't stretch your back. We didn't stretch the back of your legs. We didn't stretch your hips. He said, we worked on the soles of the feet. And he said, and that loosened up the back, right? So he said, that kind of, proves my theory that the connective tissue that makes your back tight also it goes all the way down to your feet. Let me take this out for a second. And if you would, how about if I have you lay on this side? All right. Yeah. I just lost this. I think I lost my microphone.
Oh, whoops. Do you need help?
Yes. Technical difficulty.
Stuff like that happens a lot at this television studio with the microphones.
Thank you. Excellent. Thanks. All right. So now, let me get this cord over here. Straighten this top leg out. Bend the bottom leg. Actually, come back about 4 inches towards me with your hips. Whole butt towards me. A little bit more. Yeah, good. So this is how I usually get into here. So here's like what you would feel is like the hip bone. That's the greater trochanter. This is the rim of his pelvis right here. So those muscles that we're talking about, the gluteus minimus, gluteus medius, are like right in here. So again, if his heel were to strike the ground, these would have to tighten up just to keep his pelvis level. So I kind of get in there with the forearm right near the elbow. And when Paul St. John's did this to me, I'm not proud of the fact, but I was crying and tears were flowing and I was screaming and punching the table. Ah! He's not as gentle as I am. He's not as gentle as I am with this technique. But so what you do though is you work this a little bit like this first, then you actually drop the leg off behind them here. And at first I hold on to the rim of the pelvis a little bit. And if you feel like, Jim, if you want to reach up over your head with the left hand, just reach up. We can get a really good stretch on the whole side of the body here this way. You feel a little stretch in that hip and then the low back now too? All right, you can stop doing that, but let me have your leg now. Let me have the weight of it. Yeah, let it go. So with this way, we actually get in a little bit deeper because the outer muscle is a little bit more relaxed. And Jim might be reacting a little bit more here.
Yeah, feel it.
And then let's drop this off again one more time. Stretch that again a little bit. All right, good. Let's have you go to the other side so we can even you up. There we go. That's good. Okay there, and back up. You're about 3 inches from the edge here, and then straighten the top leg, keep the bottom one bent. Oh, something going on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that.
Huh.
Now, about these people who think that they have to wear high-heeled shoes. I mean, I've heard young women say, well, I might as well enjoy wearing these while I'm young enough. Well, the reason they're not going to be young enough anymore probably at some point in time is because they do wear those.
I had a college girl come to me. I think she was 19 or 20, and she was short, and she had kind of bigger feet, like wider feet. And I think because she was short, she always felt like she wanted to wear high heels because she was shorter. But I think she also wore the shoes too small. Let's have you over on your back now.
What did she?
I think, because her feet were a little bit bigger and wider, she didn't like that, so she wore these very pointy, high-heeled shoes all the time. She was already going in for bunion surgery at age 20.
Oh,
she
yeah,
was telling me
I'm
that
sure,
she was going
yeah.
to do it over her winter break at college. But I've actually seen it. I have one client who was a banker in New York City all of her life, and she always insisted that she had to wear high heels. She says because she said it just makes so much difference in business that if you're doing business with a man, that you're at his eye level when you go to shake his hand after a business deal. So she always had to have high heels, she said. But when I first started working with her, she told me, you cannot touch the front of my shins. She goes, it's too sensitive. And my thing is like, well, it seems to me like we should be working on the fronts of your shins to desensitize
Yeah,
them.
really.
But eventually we did, and I was able to work on them, and she did get better in there. But here, her daughter is actually she's a model, bikini and underwear model, 6 foot tall, 117 pounds, and she comes into my office and she's got these like
The daughter?
4-inch high heels. It's like, you need to look 6'4", of course, if you're only a 6 foot tall woman, right? But the daughter, at a very young age, by like 18, was having the same issues with the lower leg as the mom who had worn the high heels for her whole career. But yeah, I understand that. Well, it's to a degree, it's not the same thing, but you think about the Chinese with their foot binding. It's or the corsets, just like forcing you to wear something and look a certain way. But I do know a lot of women that said that they wore them when they were younger, and now
They wish they had.
They only wear flats. Yeah, they just
Well,
can't.
yeah, that's the thing of it. They don't even know what they're doing to themselves.
Right.
You would never wear them, would you, Jim?
Absolutely not.
He did when he was younger. Don't let him kid you.
Only on Halloween.
Yeah, I know this one yoga teacher that I used to watch on television back in the, I think it was in the second half of the 1970s. She was describing what kind of damage you could do to your legs and feet if you wore high-heeled shoes. So.
Well, I do have one friend who was a dancer. Now, I don't know if she ever wore high heels. I've never seen her in high heels, but just because she was always so strong, she always spun on one leg instead of alternating. And it was in 2020 during COVID. She ended up having, I want to say they had to break 4 bones of her foot. So I know it was this bone here they had to break to straighten. I think the next one over they had to break to straighten and put pins in it, and then she had hammer toes. And I've worked on a lot of the dancers at Chautauqua Institution years ago, and I remember I was actually still studying for my New York State board exams, but I was working on what they call limited permit in New York State with massage, and there was a woman she was the choreographer for the opera at Chautauqua, and she was kind of high-level dancer in New York City for many years, and she told me, she goes, I was always the little one, so she goes, I was always the one who got thrown up in the air, and she says, I landed on my shoulder, I landed on my neck, and all these different injuries.
Yeah.
But when I looked at her toes, I was studying all the problems that you could have with toes, like hammer toes and all this, and I was like, oh, wow, she has every one of those problems with her feet that we're studying right now.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of people say too, that that are professional dancers. They're like, it looks really beautiful when you see it, but it's completely unnatural, those kinds of movements.
Well, a chiropractor once told me that the worst looking feet he ever saw were on a ballet dancer.
Oh yeah. I used to have the one girl. She was, she said, well, she goes, I'm getting kind of old for being a ballerina. She was like 26, but she would come to me. I would see her once at Chautauqua every week, and then once a week she would come to my office. So like 2 hours of massage every week, and it was all the lower legs and feet primarily that were her problem. But I said to her once, it's like, is there a way that you could, like, when you're done, like, soak your lower legs in like a bucket of ice water? She goes, my parents, she goes, they're so great. She goes, they bought me a stainless steel bucket. She goes, I ice my legs every day, every night after she gets done. So I'm thinking we do just like a little bit of psoas. This is always a lot of fun. So the psoas is
okay.
Yeah. It's like the tenderloin of a cow or a pig or whatever, but those muscles that we were working along the sides of his spine, down in the low back, where just above the pelvis, there's the psoas, and it goes from the lowest rib all the way. It actually goes down inside the pelvis, and it acts to its mainly action is to bring up the knee. So it actually goes down through your pelvis. There's actually a muscle called iliacus, and it's like it kind of lines the inside of the bowl of the pelvis, and very uncomfortable to kind of get into that. But some anatomy books will call it the iliopsoas. But what I usually do is find the belly button. We're going to have Jim, and I go out about 3 inches, have Jim take a deep breath in and exhale, and I go down and I kind of scoop in, and usually have a little bit of something on the other side, isn't it?
Does he have to hold his breath out?
No, I asked him to exhale, and then he can just breathe normally.
Oh, okay.
It's just to kind of like relax the body a little bit to start with, but also, if he were to keep his stomach inflated, it's a little bit hard for me to get down in there. So again, take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. This side here, we have the superior vena cava, which if I was on it, I think I would feel the pulse, but also if you do this on someone, you're supposed to tell them that if they feel a burning, searing pain, that they should let you know, but I've never hit it on anybody.
Okay, the vena cava.
Yep, superior vena cava. It's the main vein, because it's your arteries that pump the blood away from the heart, and it's the veins that bring the blood back. And the superior vena cava is only on the right side, and all the blood that's been in your legs comes up, goes through the superior vena cava before it goes back into the heart. Let's have this arm down to your side. Just bring this arm down. Do some on the arms. That's our time right there. So I know we talked before, you have a little something going on the left shoulder, right? In that
Right.
bicep tendon?
Correct.
Yeah, you should look in the mirror, that collarbone on the left side. You got a little yellowish bruise there. Like something poked you. So again, these are like the deep glides like St. John's does with the neuromuscular. I'm not really finding anything particularly tense or anything, so I'm just kind of going over these. And actually, the most muscle concentrations we have in our body are in our forearm. There are 208 or 216 muscles in the body, but from your elbows to the tips of your fingers, there are 25 muscles. From the knee to the toes, you have 17. So that's like, almost a third of all the muscles in your body are in your forearms or your lower legs. Yeah, I had the bicep tendonitis myself from, it started when I started doing advanced Kung Fu lessons. We would do 200 push-ups on Tuesday night, and it just started irritating my bicep tendon. So I would ice my shoulders before class every week, and it would keep it from getting worse. But eventually I read an article, and they said that, and I did. I used to keep my hands out wide for my push-ups. They said that your hands should be closer to your shoulders because
Yeah.
it puts a lot more pressure on your tricep, but it takes the pressure off the front of the shoulder. And I found when I brought my hand position in for the push-ups, the shoulder problem went away.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, definitely, had it worked on. It definitely had icing and all too. But
Yeah, I've heard that doing push-ups is supposed to be good for heart health.
for what, heart?
For your heart health, yeah.
Yeah.
For
Well,
keeping
it's
for
like a
keeping your
plank.
heart healthy. I don't know. It's something about the particular way that you move, or I don't know. I don't really understand, but
It's a good general exercise. I know that. 'Cause,
You
I mean,
know.
it's a whole, it's like planks in yoga. I mean, it's
right,
a whole body
right,
thing.
Right. Well,
Which I don't know if you were at the class. This was at Darielle's studio, but I know I was the only guy in the class, and I was the only one that could do a plank. And she said, "Well, you see, men have more upper body strength, so that's why Bill can do this and nobody else can." I said, "Well, does it matter that I do 700 push-ups every week?" And she was like, "Oh my God, do you do 100 every day?" It's like, well, usually like 400 on Sunday, 200 on Tuesday, and then I do 200 on or 100 on Wednesday, and then I rest Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
well, you can do wall push-ups
Oh yeah,
where you stand a certain distance from the wall and then just do the push-up motions from the wall
Right.
instead of the floor.
right. I
it-
do it on the kitchen counter. I'll do it on the arm of the couch or something like that. Like sometimes I'll be like, well, I didn't get much exercise today, but I'm boiling water to make pasta, or I'm going to make rice or something like
And
that.
you're lifting the
So
hot-
I'll do like sets of 20 squats. I'll do sets of 20 push-ups while I'm cooking.
Yeah, I do stuff like that too, where I if I'm having a day where I can't set aside a whole hour, to
Right.
exercise all at once, then I'll I'll do certain exercises that, just for a couple minutes here and a couple minutes there, wherever I can fit them in.
Well, I have a friend who's a longtime yogi, and he's a couple of years older than me, but she told me that something that she's been doing for years is every day in the shower, she does her age plus 10 in squats in the shower every morning.
Oh, yeah. While the water is running.
Yeah, while she's
Yeah,
showering. Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Wim Hof would say turn that shower to full cold before you start, but feel anything in there?
But
So he's got a little something going on with this bicep tendon, but I would suggest you maybe ice this when you get home, and then maybe again tonight before you go to bed. Probably be a lot better. I have to say, I did have a guy who, his brother was an orthopedic surgeon, and he would come to me every other Saturday for his low back. And
The orthopedic surgeon?
no, the brother-in-law,
The brother.
orthopedic surgeon. One Saturday he comes in and says, "Well, how's the back doing?" "Well," he says, "my back isn't bad, but he said this darn shoulder of mine," and he explained what was going on. I'm like, "Oh, well, that's your bicep tendon." He said, "Well," he says, "I know my brother-in-law would give me an injection in there." He said, "A cortisone injection." He said, "But I've had it before," and he says it's extremely painful to have that injection. And I said,
Well-
I said, "We can work on it here today." So I
Yeah.
iced it for him. Again, while he was face down, put the ice pack under it, face up. I worked on the bicep, worked on the shoulder, and I said, "Now, it's Saturday. You're done with work. Can you ice this like around dinner time tonight, and then again before you go to bed tonight?" He's like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And I said, "Tomorrow's Sunday." I said, 3 times tomorrow. You're going to ice it 3 times tomorrow. And I said, before work on Monday morning, you're going to do it again. He called me up on Monday morning. He says, "Bill," I tell you, he says, "you're going to get a lot of business from this." He said, "My shoulder is like 100% right now."
Yeah.
After just that, what we did on Saturday and the icing, and it did. It stayed, fine for him. So, sometimes it's just a matter of getting some work done on it, and the icing really does help. I have a newer Facebook friend, and she works out a lot. She's in Arizona, and she was telling me that she has sciatica. And so I said, well, but she was doing everything right. She was stretching, she was doing pigeon, she was doing the cross-legged sitting in the chair. Yeah. She said, I've talked to people. She said, I do that. I said, have you ever iced it? And she's like, iced it? And I said, yeah. I said, and she's like, where would I put the ice? I said, right where your pocket would be on a pair of jeans, on the back pocket of the jeans. She's been messaging me for about 2 weeks. She says she couldn't sleep at night. She was in so much pain, but she's like sleeping all the way through the night. She says at the minimum, she says she's 80% better just by following a little bit of icing suggestions. So let me turn you to the left. So yeah, with the neck, like I said, I'm pushing through the muscle, probably very close to the bone here. But this right here is called that's the lamina groove, like
Lamina groove?
Lamina. So here on the side, these are the bones that stick out on the side. The transverse processes are right here, and then his spinous processes, the ones that are in the back, are right there. So this here is where all of the major posterior muscles of the neck are, right in there. I know I've had some people get upset when I'm digging in here, and it can be tense and painful, but one guy, he was actually a high school football coach, he's like, aren't you afraid you're pressing on my jugular vein or my carotid artery? I was like, well, I can actually see the carotid artery and your jugular vein, and all that is in front of that. That's why I'm not in the front of this bone, I'm in the back of it. But he was also concerned I would break his rib while I was going along with my elbow, and I'm like, well, I've never had a client in 28 years tell me that I broke their ribs. So, I mean, it's certainly possible, but.
Have you ever had a person do anything? I mean, can massage, like for somebody who, there's something called pulling a rib. Have you ever had somebody who?
I've helped people with rib pain. I've actually had ribs separated from, I got punched in the ribs so hard in a sparring match one time in Kung Fu that it popped my ribs out of my spine. I've gotten other injuries that way where the spine, and I've needed to go to the chiropractor for that. But yeah, I've done a lot with rib pain because sometimes the thing is that, I mean, Paul St. John's told us this, and actually another one of our teachers in massage school said it, but oftentimes, as far as like chiropractic goes, it's the muscle that keeps moving the bone out of position. It's not that, oh, I'm out, my spine is out. It's out because the muscle keeps pulling it out of place. But I've had it, same thing with a rib, where the rib will actually be, there's muscles in between. There's intercostal muscles between every rib, and you can actually have what you will feel like point tenderness, like you have a broken rib when it's really just like a bruised muscle between the ribs.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I got the deaf dog that I have. I got partly because, I wasn't sure if I could handle him because he's deaf. He's a pit bull. He had bitten people before, but the canine sheriff who evaluated him, I was thinking, boy, I wish I could get to talk to him about this dog, but I never asked the woman who had him anything about him. If I could get the guy's number, or she could give him my number, or anything like that. And within 36 hours, he called my office because his wife was having some rib pain. So I got to talk to him on the phone. I got to talk to him in person. And now I've had this this dog that was supposed to be euthanized about 8 years ago. I've had him for over 7.5 years, and he isn't a problem.
He's never been aggressive.
In the first couple of weeks that I got him, he did attempt to nip a couple of people, but I know myself, like right now he has a little bit of hot spots, and I'll take this calendula cream that I have, and I'll go to put it on him, and he'll move his head like he wants to snap me, but eventually, after I start rubbing it, he's like, oh, wow, that feels good, and then he comes back and he wants me to do it more.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But he'll sometimes, I think, because he's deaf, and then because he was kind of teased and abused, and I was told that people were beating him because he wouldn't listen, but he's deaf. So sometimes when if I have to take him to the vet, I always tell him, it's like, he's not really good. I mean, people are like, oh, he seems really nice and friendly. I'm like, until you try to do something to him. Let me just take you straight this way.
Yeah.
Just do this little neck stretch here.
I've known animals that were like that. I remember a cat, the last cat that my mother had when she was alive. Just because she was afraid.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, dogs usually do bite out of fear. It's not like they bite because they're so brave or there's feelings so great about it. That's what makes them bite. But yeah, with him, he was funny though too. Like I was told the last lady that adopted him had him for 3 hours and he bit her twice, and she was like, "This dog's insane. This dog's crazy. This dog needs to be put down." And she. Well, what the story was, this canine sheriff told me that she said, well, what happened was they had him for about 3 hours, and her daughter said, "Mom, the dog growled at me." So she came at the dog going, "No, no, 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 no," with her hands out, and he was like, "What? I don't even know this lady," and he just nipped her on both hands. Mm-hmm. Well, I had him for about 2 weeks, and I'm sitting at my kitchen counter, and he's laying on the floor behind me, and I hear like growling, and I looked. He was growling at his reflection in the refrigerator door. I'm not really 100% sure he was actually growling at the girl. And there was a time, I mean, it was, again, after I only had him for a couple of weeks, he was on my lower deck and back of the house, and he was looking at the house and growling, and I'm just like, I can't even see where he would. I mean, the only thing I could think of is he saw a reflection. Looking at the window, it would have had to been like a cloud or something for him to have seen it. But yeah, the first couple of weeks I had him, every night when it got dark, he would like run around the house barking and growling at like shadows and reflections and stuff. But and it was funny though too, because he. Eventually, he doesn't do that anymore. He stopped it after like maybe a couple months. But I was leading a drum circle in my great room, and this new guy came the one time, and he was a little bit shady looking to start with, but he had a baseball cap on, and you'd never see the guy's eyes. And the dog came over to him and was just like reaching to just like barely sniff his knee, and this guy was like, "No, no, down!" And he grabbed my dog by the collar and forced him to the ground. I'm thinking, really? You don't even know me and you just forced my dog to the ground? Interesting. And something in that dog switched. I mean, he'd been fine for months and months and months before that, and he just started running around and barking at shadows and reflections and stuff. He was standing right between me and the guy who'd done this. And I'm trying to pet him and calm him down. I'm like, "It's okay, Jack, it's okay." And he was just like so tense. I'm like, he will bite this guy if I don't put him away. I don't know that he would have, but he was so wired after that I think somehow that guy doing that sort of reminded him of something from the past.
Something from the past.
He kind of reverted.
Well, guess what?
We're nearly out of time.
We are out of time, yeah. So anyways, do you want to say anything real quick?
I mean, I guess just in general that, I always think, I have probably received a massage a week for over 28 years. I think it's just beneficial for health in general, but, also can work out certain other problematic things, with, again, I've saved a lot of people from back surgeries, carpal tunnel, piriformis, hip syndromes, and things like that too. But yeah, it's not just a spa treatment like some people think. But other than that, I guess thanks for having me on again.
Oh, sure. And how do you feel, Jim?
Wonderful.
Oh, good, good. Okay, I will see the rest of you in the viewing audience on the next episode.